Okay. And I didn't cry. Didn't cry for me. So, can I have an applause for Alberto? So here's the funny thing about that song. So we sang it, and then when we had our children, Doug LeBeau gave me a CD of Kenny Loggins' Return to Pooh Corner. And I used to play it in the car, and we would notice that the minute we put on the CD of Return to Pooh Corner, the very first notes would be played, and they would fall asleep in their car seats. So it was this awesome tool that whenever we needed to really get them quiet, because, twin babies are loud, and just when one gets quiet, the other one wakes up and wakes the other one up. So we used to literally, you'd see us driving around Studio City with Pooh Corner blasting in the back seat just to get them to sleep. But the funniest story is when we were coming back from somewhere, and they were just so rowdy, and Kevin and I was like, they gotta shut up. I'm having trouble driving here. And so Kevin puts it in, and all of a sudden you start to hear the notes, and you hear Will in the back seat go, no! and then moments later, they're out. So, and last Father's Day, I lost that CD of Return to Pooh Corner. Last Father's Day, Will gave it to me. He went online, found it, and gave it to me. I'm going to give it back to him when he has children. So it's hard to explain. No, it's hard to explain how a few precious gifts. You're good. Go back to is it my talk title next?
No, Margaret is next.
No, she's not singing next. I'm doing my talk, and then she's singing. So here we go. So work with me here. So, it's hard to explain how a few precious things seem to follow throughout all our lives. That's the line that always, always gets me. It's hard to explain how a few precious things seem to follow throughout all our lives. So my question to you today, one of the questions I have for you today is, what's still following you throughout your life when it comes to Father's Day? Because for a lot of people, Father's Day comes up and brings up memories. Good, sometimes amazing, good ones, sometimes not so good ones. But what's still following you? What follows you each year when this day comes up? Because here's the great thing about our teaching. We're all at choice. Every single one of us is at choice to decide what follows us throughout our days. I think we're not. I think there are many of us that believe that things follow us and oh, well, this is what I am, this is my life. Not so, not so. Not so, not so. Because you are in charge of being in relationship to whatever it is you bring up. You're in relationship to all of that history. You're in relationship to all of it. So, William Shakespeare said this, "It is the wise father that knows his child." It is the wise father that knows his child. So I thought I'd tell you a little story about my father, who I had a very tumultuous relationship with. And if I chose to, I could look back and I could choose to look at all the things that would substantiate that tumultuous relationship. I could point back to my father and say, my father taught me the greatest lesson in life, how not to be a father. I could say that. I just did, in fact. But that's not how I ended my relationship with my father. And he was a man who was raised by his father. Not hard to look back and see where all of this came from, right? But when my mother got very sick and she was about to pass away, it became very clear to me that I was going to have to take over the family. I was going to have to raise, I had two younger brothers still in grade school. I was going to have to raise them. And that would make my father, I thought, very happy, because then he could continue to live his life and I could raise the children until they got out of high school. And about the junior year of my college, my father took me aside and looked at me and he said, you know what, I have to tell you this. You need to leave. You need to go to New York and follow your dreams. because if you stay here one more day, you'll be stuck here. He said, you got to stop caring about me, worrying about your brothers, and go to New York and make a life for yourself. And I was on the next Amtrak train to New York City, but I went. And you know, that's the memory I have of my father. I also have a memory of him as he was passing, which is something that I finally understood what happened. Because the day he died, I brought my children to see him with Kevin. We flew to Philadelphia. And he was he died that day, so you can only imagine the feeling. He had skin cancer, a melanoma that was everywhere. And it was very interesting watching Will sitting on his lap and him talking to Will. And in my heart, I was thinking, wow, so you're doing better as a grandfather here. And I had this judgment in me. And it's judgment week in boot camp, so it's great to revisit this. And as I left, I sent the kids and Kevin out to the car, and I said, let me just say goodbye to him by myself. Which, by the way, we thought he had another year left, we were told. So I sat there and I looked at him and I said, so Dad, if you could do it all over again, what would you change? Now, what I think he's going to say, because I'm obviously prompting him, I would have been a better father. I would have really spent more time with you kids. And he looked at me and he went, absolutely nothing. He said, I loved my life. I did everything the best way I could do it. I wouldn't change a thing. And my rather evolved mind went to, really? I was in shock. I was like, really? And I was just like, okay then, I'll see you when I come back. And I left. And then he passed that day. And the next day I'm giving a talk at Unity in New York City. And the title of my talk is You Can't Stop the Beat. And everybody was like, you don't have to go in and do this, you're okay. But I gave the talk anyway. It took me maybe 3 or 4 years to, in the middle of teaching a class, to look back and say, oh my God, he was right. If I can get to the end of my life and absolutely know that everything I did was perfect, I actually understand this teaching. My life unfolded perfectly. I would change nothing. I don't leave with regrets. I don't leave wishing I had done something differently. I leave being content with I know who I am. And I was like, wow, that was a long lesson to learn. That took many years to get there. So I have bookended my father's story with those 2 stories. That's the choice I have. I get to choose how I bring all of that into my history. Now, I also have a story about my son that some of you may have heard. I have lots of stories about my son. But this one, some of you may have heard it, but if you have, I'm sure you'll love hearing it again. But I know there's many that hasn't. One day, getting ready for church in North Hollywood, I was really hurrying along, and I had the kids by myself, and Nora was in her wheelchair, I was going to say. Nora was in her high chair. And Will, for some reason, was sitting on the counter, and it was a smaller kitchen then, and I had the blender here, and I'm throwing in eggs and all these fruits and vegetables, and I'm making my protein drink, and I'm still talking to Will, and I'm trying to get it done, and I'm beautifully dressed, all ready for church. And I turn around, and I go to turn around, and I see Will, and I was like, buddy, and as I walked over, he pushed the button, hadn't put the lid on yet, and egg and raw egg and vegetables. I had like stuff caked in my hair, and I am like, and I look at Will. Now, we have taught our children up to this point one big lesson in life. It comes from Science of Mind, and it's this: no matter what's going on, it's no big deal. No big deal. So I am standing there like this, and this little 5-year-old or 4-year-old, however old you were, looks up to me and goes, no big deal. Well, I can't speak. And I'm just like, and then he says it again. No big deal. But not as sure of himself. And I'm getting more and more like, what am I going to do here? And I'm listening to him, I'm hearing him, I'm getting annoyed that he's throwing Science of Mind at me when I'm trying to figure this out. And then all of a sudden, little tears comes in his eyes, and he goes, no big deal. And I just I got so upset. I was like, oh my God, I teach him one thing and then I act out another. And so I grabbed him and hugged him and said, no big deal. And we went in and washed ourselves up. The whole time, though, Nora's just sitting there eating, going, boys. I could totally read her subtext. And we went in, we changed it up. I changed his clothes, I changed my clothes, and we made it to church on time, of course. So, but that's a memory I'm always going to have. And it's not just how funny that was, it's the memory of, am I going to live this science or not? Am I going to live this science when all the crap in the world flies at me and lands? Because that's when you need it the most, right? Okay, so here's the thing. There's a beautiful song in one of the Sondheim shows, I think it's Into the Woods, called Children Will Listen. Children Will Listen. Well, the song you're about to hear by Margaret Owens is something that she suggested to me. I suggested a song to her, and she said, I could sing that. Or, here's one I wrote, and when she played it, it's exactly where this talk needed to end. It's exactly where this talk needed to land. So please welcome Margaret Owens.
No big deal. I love that. Okay. Are you taking in that rainbow across that picture perfect sky? Are you lying in the tall grass watching weightless clouds go by? 'Cause I am drawing treasure to you like the waves draw to the shore, to let you know I could not love you more. Are you bathing in the sunshine? Are you soaking up the rain? Are you reveling in laughter, or are you pausing in the pain? 'Cause I am loving you completely, whether you thrive or just endure. Remember that I could not love you more. I don't need your faith, I don't need your praise. My peace depends only on how you set your gaze, and I am busting out all over to show you how much you're adored, and let you know I could not love you more. Oh, it's everywhere, in protest or in prayer. When you're happy or you're sad, if you're peaceful or stark raving mad, if you're sober or you're high, if you know for sure or you question why, in frustration and in fun, no matter who you've been or what you've done, at your death and at your birth, at your best and at your worst, remember that I could not love you more.
Thank you. Thank you for that. When I heard that song, I Could Not Love You More. And Margaret told me before the song began, but I'm sure I would have figured it out anyway. When you think about that in terms of God, the love of God, the love that animates, moves me, the love that is me, through the good times and the bum times, through the worst, through the best, through all of it. You know, we talk about God the Father in many of the religions. I'm a father. I could not love my children anymore, and nothing they do will ever stop that. Can I be disappointed? That's my problem. You know, can they make mistakes? That's their problem. But it won't change the love. Well, isn't that the relationship we have with the divine? God, that thing that we are, doesn't care what we do. It just gives us everything we could ever possibly need. Are you bathing in the sunshine? Are you soaking in the rain? Are you reveling in the laughter? Are you pausing in the pain? Are you living your life, the life that the Father has given? Everything that we could ever possibly need, we have. Are we taking advantage of it? And I love this line. She says, I am drawing treasures to you. I have everything out there for you to attract into your life. I am pushing them towards you. Are you open to receiving this Father's love? Are you open to receiving that good that is beyond measure? That's what it means to really understand this. When I go back to my Catholic teaching, the Father who loves you. That's that love. And it then becomes the individualized version of it when you get to be your own type of father or mother or parent or leader or guardian or whatever you caretaker, Audrey. Whatever it is you do, you get to be that and show that and live that. Ernest Holmes said this, the Spirit of God, which we think of as the Father within, is a divine presence within each of us. Margaret Owen says, like the waves draw to the shore, remember that I could not love you anymore. The Spirit is ever giving, but we must take what life does for us. It must be able to do through us. That's what we celebrate again, back to choice. You're at choice to decide how you're going to use all this stuff. And that's the greatest gift we could ever have. Carol Coates said this, a father is a man who expects his children to be as good as he meant to be. Think about that, right? I want my children to be everything I am and everything I never got around to being. But mostly what I really want them to be is happy with their choices, not mine, to be happy with whatever they choose to do in life and however they choose to express and live life. And that's what God wants for me as me. Barack Obama said this, any fool can have a child. That doesn't make you a father. It's the courage to raise a child that makes you a father. So there is something in you that is wanting to raise you up to the highest level of conscious mind. There is that nurturing inside of you that wants you to be happy, that wants you to be successful, that wants you to be fulfilled, that wants you to be healthy, that wants you to live this life at the highest level possible, that is not sitting around pointing out your mistakes. It's not sitting around pointing your failures. It's not pointing to your weaknesses. It is saying, you and I are one. Now let's live it, baby. That's what God is like. This beautiful energy inside that when you, as Eric said, when you are willing to focus on it and be in harmony with the rest of it, you must be in harmony with your past. You must be in harmony with your present. And you must be in harmony with a future that is unfolding perfectly. And why I say that is because many of us get stuck when we go to the future part of it, because we're working so hard to make this future be what we want it to be. Guess what? Joke is on us. The future already is exactly what it's going to be. Why not relax and enjoy it? And get in touch with that thing inside of you that is saying, you are my beloved, in whom I am well pleased. Even as a little Catholic boy growing up, I will never forget that Bible quote. You are my beloved, in whom I am well pleased. Yes, it was the Father talking to Jesus, apparently. But Jesus came to tell us everything the Father says to me, through me, it's saying through you, because we are one. And the Father and I are one, just as you and the Father are one. And you are my beloved, in whom I am well pleased. I see God sitting somewhere saying, I did a great job with these people. What is their problem? I did everything perfectly. I created man and women so that they could enjoy each other. Many, many years later, they figured they could turn to each other. It didn't matter who they went with. I gave them choice and volition. Doesn't matter if you're straight, gay, trans, bi, pan, all those things I learned yesterday in a workshop. It just doesn't matter. It matters that you are happy, that you reflect the truth and the good that God is, and that you walk through your life saying, you are my beloved, in whom I am well pleased, to every single person you meet. Imagine what the world would be like if that's the premise we came from and lived from, and wherever we went, that's what we found. Well, you and I, we get to start today living from that perspective. We get to say no more to separation, no more to being divided. Because the Father and I are not only one, we are one hell of an energy that is ready to be lived to the fullest. Happy Father's Day. Namaste. Thank you.